Hey, hello, and welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a couple weeks, but I'm so happy to be back. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, a wonderful new year, and I hope your year is starting off excellent. I had the unfortunate consequence of spending time with my nephew, and he got me sick. Actually, I should say fortunate. It was great to spend time with them, but got a little bit too close. Caught a little cold the first couple of days, but now feeling great, ready to start this year. And wow, are there a lot of changes coming when it comes to your retirement planning? So, specifically, we're going to be talking today about the Secure Act, which you may have heard of so far. But we're also going to talk about how it will impact you as a pre or current retiree. So, there's a lot of legislation in there, and I think some of it doesn't really apply necessarily to most of the folks here, but a lot of it's going to. And so, what I want to talk to you about today is how it may impact you, how you should be thinking about it, and then maybe some ways that you can actually use it to your advantage from a tax and financial planning perspective. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jason Hamilton. I'm a certified financial planner and a chartered retirement planning counselor, and I'm the admin of this page and group. So, usually, last couple weeks I took off before the holiday season, but generally every Sunday at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to bring you a live workshop that's going to help you increase your knowledge and become a better, more educated consumer when it comes to your retirement planning. So that's what my goal is to help you every single week improve a little bit. So if I'm doing that, then I'm doing my job. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Secure Act and what are some of the changes and some of the things that I've seen a lot of questions actually. So I want to clarify and bring you some clarity around the things that may impact you, especially when it comes to RMDs and some other things when it comes to passing on possibly your money. So hopefully you enjoy this. And then, of course, I'm always open to questions. So at the end, I will make time for questions. So if you want to put your questions in the comments down below, then I will go through them at the end of our broadcast today and do my best to answer them. I'm still, I've gone through quite a bit of it. I've read pretty much the whole thing, but I'm still absorbing some of the things. And then there's also some legislation that's not quite clear. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but it's especially around your estate planning. So if you have estate planning questions, we might want to hold off on that because there's some things that aren't laid out yet. So I'm going to get to as much as I can and really do my best to make this as clear as possible and to keep it simple, right? So if you have any questions, like I said, put them in the comments. But other than that, I want to jump in today and just get right to our training. So let's talk about this here. Okay, so the Secure Act. What is it? And how does it impact your retirement planning, right? So that's what we really want to talk about here. Before we jump in, I always have to put up my disclaimers here. You should not put use anything I hear or anything I talk to you about here as tax, legal, or financial information or financial advice. This is meant to be informational, so I please always recommend that you get an individual assessment of your situation. Don't take this for following exactly what you should do. Everyone's gonna be a little bit different, okay? So let's talk about the Secure Act. So Secure Act originally passed in the House. So originally passed in the House in July, but it was approved on the 19th of December by the Senate and then signed into law on December 20th by President Donald Trump. So the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act of 2009, better known as the Secure Act, includes significant changes that may impact your retirement planning. So today we're going to be covering some of the most impactful changes for pre-retirees and some of you currently in retirement, okay? All right, so this is a big one, okay? This is a big one. Required minimum distribution age has been increased from 70 and a half years old to 72, okay? So this is a big deal, and for those of you that aren't there yet, there's a lot of tax planning we can do. But if you are not currently 72, then you get to put off these required distributions for just a little bit longer. So prior to the Secure Act, you were required to start taking distributions from retirement accounts such as your 401ks if you were not still working at the company that held your 401k, because if you're still working at the same company, you didn't have to take distributions. That didn't change. And IRA starting at 70 and a half years old. So now you can delay your first distribution until 72. Technically, you could still wait until April 1st after the year you turn 72 to take your first RMD, but remember that you will have to take 2 RMDs in 1 year if you do wait. So that could require you to pay extra tax if that's the case. There may be some benefits to that if you're still working at 72, earning an income, and it would be less the following year. So again, these are those things that I'm mentioning that you really should be looking at your individual situation on, okay? So What are some of the potential benefits to you as a retiree? So you can contribute to your IRAs past the 70 and a half age limit. So in fact, there is no age limit now. So what does this mean for you? If you have any sort of part-time job, okay, so that's earned income from either wages or self-employment in your late retirement years, you can now defer tax on your income if you'd like by contributing up to $6,000 plus a $1,000 catch-up contribution over 50, which obviously this would make sense. So $7,000 total. So that's per person in your household. So if you're married, that can mean up to $14,000 per year if you and your spouse are married, at this age. So if you are one of the many people that continue to work past 70 and a half years old, previously you would have had to take requirement distributions from your IRA even if you were still working. So that was very painful for folks that were still working past 70 and a half because you're earning your full income, and then that RMD would have to come out regardless, because you're still because your age hit that particular limit. So that would come out basically at your top tax bracket, right? So that was quite painful. It was quite painful for people that were still working there. This was a horrible way to pay tax. That would most likely be a higher tax rate than you'd most likely be paying post-retirement, right? So that's sort of the idea there is if you're still working, it could be a benefit to you. So, this is something that's really important. I should also mention that if you receive certain foster care payments, you can now make non-deductible IRA contributions. So this is a big difference. If you are a foster parent and you're receiving foster care payments, previously you couldn't use that to make any sort of IRA contributions. They did change that. So if you're a foster parent, you can now make non-deductible IRA contributions, which means you can put the money in an IRA. You can't deduct the money you put in there on your taxes for this particular year, but you can get the tax deferred growth if that money were to stay in there for a very long time. Okay. So while this sounds great, we did lose a very valuable estate planning provision called the stretch IRA. The stretch IRA is now gone. Okay. So if it's your IRA, you probably don't care because you're going to pass it on and it's going to go to your heirs and you're not going to be here, right? So this is how I think this got through, by the way, because it really didn't affect people that were, alive in a sense. I think, we really failed as a financial planning community to fight for this because this is a very valuable financial planning tool if you are somebody that has a little bit of money left over in your estate when you pass. So in all honesty, the average retirement savings currently in the U.S. is about $170,000. So the majority of people would not have this happen. It is a small percentage, but a lot of people here on this page and following, some of these workshops, you guys do have above average when it comes to the amount of wealth you have saved. So this is something that is probably going to hurt you. So there is some things you want to be doing to plan for that if possible, and we'll talk a little bit about what those could be. Okay, so what does this mean? So previous to the Secure Act, when you left an inheritance from your IRA to a non-spouse beneficiary, whoever inherited the account could use their life expectancy table for the distribution period, and the account can continue to grow tax deferred or tax free. So the stretch IRA is gone both for traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. So this, here's an example. So a very young beneficiary. So let's say you left your IRA to a young beneficiary, like a grandchild. That particular person could have potentially enjoyed this tax preferred status for decades to come, only having to take out a small RMD each year. This was something prior to this act that I had advised many clients on. If you have an IRA, if you have grandchildren you want to leave money to, then you can assign them part of that Roth IRA or the full Roth IRA, and then they essentially could let that Roth IRA grow for the rest of their life until basically, retirement. Essentially, we have to take out more. So unfortunately, this is now gone. So there's a lot of things here that from a financial perspective, even if you do have a financial plan in place, you may want to be reevaluating things now because with this change, your particular strategy may need some updating, okay? So that's going to be really important. So, under the new law, non-spouse beneficiaries must empty the account within 10 years, okay? So this, there's some positives and negatives to this rule, okay? There really is some positives and negatives. So, for example, let's say you inherit your parents' IRA, okay? Because most of the folks here are in a neighborhood of like, 50 to 65, for example, and most of your parents are still with us and maybe passing, in the next, hopefully a long time from now, but maybe in the next 5 or 10 years or whatnot. And during this time when they pass, you may still be working, okay? So let's say you were 60 years old and you were planning to retire at 65. So you have a 5-year window. There is a benefit now with the way this particular law has set us up. So there are no specific RMD requirements. So currently, if you received an inherited IRA before January 1st, 2020, you would have to follow the RMD schedule that's based on your age off the IRS beneficiary tax tables. So generally you have to take out something, right? So depending on your age, it might be anywhere 2, 3, 4%, but you have to take out something each year. Now you technically don't have to take out anything each year, but the account has to be completely empty within 10 years, okay? So if you did inherit an IRA January 1st, 2020 and going forward, and you're going to be retiring in the next couple of years, well, this could be valuable to you because let's say you're making a high salary of 100,000 plus. Well, if you were to have to start taking your RMDs, starting in this year, then you would have to pay probably a good chunk of tax on that, so you might lose 20, 30, or 40%, maybe even more depending on your state. You might have lost a big chunk of that money to taxes, but now since there are no specific RMD requirements, you could potentially delay your first RMD until after you worked, okay? That is going to shorten the time frame, right? You have to take this money out. So if we are dealing with pre-tax accounts like traditional IRAs, well, again, these are plus or minuses. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of planning. And this is, again, the kind of stuff we do, but there's going to be a lot of things coming up here if you are inheriting IRAs now in 2020 and beyond that you really want to be smart, okay? You really want to be smart and you want to look at your tax planning because by getting this right, you could potentially be saving a lot of money in taxes. And for many folks that I work with, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars. So you really want to have a good strategy with this, okay? So like I said, there are no specific RMD requirements. You just have to empty the account within 10 years, okay? So technically, you could wait until the 10th year after you inherit this IRA and empty it all out in 1 year if you wanted to. If it's a Roth IRA where there will be no tax implications, then that could be a really good strategy, by the way, right? Because then you continue to leave the money inside the Roth account to continue to grow another 10 years tax-free. And then at that 10th year, just take it all out at one time. Because if you were to take it out in the first year, obviously, you may reinvest that money. And then, when you reinvest the money, you would probably be doing so in some sort of non-tax advantage account. So like a taxable account where you pay capital gains each year. So there's some good strategies here that I think we can really help you out with, depending on what type of accounts that you have. Okay, so going back to our example, like I said, this could be a benefit because you wouldn't have to take anything out of your account when you're working and most likely in a higher tax bracket. You could wait until after retirement to withdraw, which would be at a lower tax rate, okay? So however, if the balance is large enough, you will want to do the tax planning to see if waiting until after retirement and only having 5 years, again, this is just in this example here that I'm using, only having 5 years to withdraw is a better financial move than while working and having 10 years to withdraw. We could really, you really want to be playing with some numbers here and optimizing for your particular situation. Because if you get, again, if you're high salary, you're still working at this time, and you're planning to not work within that 10-year time frame, in other words, retire, then, you may want to take the majority of it after you retire. But depending on how large the balance is that you inherit, there still may be some benefits to taking some out while you're working and then taking the rest out after you hit retirement, okay? So this is actually, pretty similar to the existing 5-year rule for non-designated beneficiaries. So if you didn't know, currently there are, well, I should say currently, but previously there was really 2 ways to distribute an IRA. You could do it over 5 years, or you could take the essentially the life based on the IRS beneficiary tax table to take it over the rest of your life. So, but since now there are no distribution requirements each year, you just have to empty the account in 10 years. This does give you some flexibility to optimize for taxes, all right? But there is a caveat, okay? Eligible beneficiaries are not subject to the new 10-year rule under the Secure Act. Okay, so beneficiaries who are referred to as eligible designated beneficiaries which are the following, are not required to follow this particular 10-year rule. Okay, so if we have a spousal beneficiary, so if one spouse passes, leaves their account to the other spouse, this is not going to come into play. Okay, so you don't really have to worry about this for you and your spouse. You're still going to follow basically the old rules. Not a whole lot to worry about there. This is more for your legacy and when you're going to be passing things on. So a lot of my clients are in like the, kind of mid to late 50s, early mid 60s type of clients. And generally, they haven't taken Social Security yet. So where there's an opportunity here, if you are married and you do have beneficiaries that may be coming along down the road, like children, for example, you may want to look at some things like partial Roth conversions. We've talked about what those are in many trainings previously, so you might want to go back and look at that. But to make it simple, what that means is if you retire early before you take RMDs, for example, and you have some low or no income years, it might be a good strategy to consider moving some of your money from a pre-tax account, which would be a traditional IRA, over to your Roth IRA. Yes, you're going to pay some tax in that particular year, but if you have no income, we have quite a bit of money we could transfer over with either zero or minimal taxes. So if you're looking at the long-term estate planning, that could be a really good strategy for you. Okay. The second category are disabled beneficiaries as defined by IRC section 72M7. So I'm going to put this information and some additional things on my blog. So if you want to click through and look through this, I'm going to put this on the blog after today's presentation so that you can click through and read through these things if this may affect you. Okay. Category number 3 is chronically ill beneficiaries as defined by IRC section 7702B C2. Okay. Then the fourth category is individuals who are not more than 10 years younger than the decedent. Okay, so if you are not more than 10 years younger than the decedent, then this wouldn't really come into play. So that would be kind of an interesting situation, like if you passed your funds to a sibling, for example, that was a couple of years, within you, then you could still follow the old rules. Okay, and then the last category is certain minor children of the original retirement account owner, but only until they reach the age of majority. Okay, so that's going to be defined, I believe, by the state. So you really want to look into these things depending on how you plan to leave money behind, if there is any, after you complete your retirement time frame. Okay, so if the beneficiary falls into one of these eligible beneficiary categories, then the same rules apply as they did before the Secure Act. Okay. All right, so what if a trust? What if you have, you try to do the right things and, you really wanted to protect yourself and your, whoever your heirs are going to be in the long run, and you named a trust as the beneficiary of your account. Well, this gets a little bit tricky, okay? It gets a little bit tricky, okay? Oops. Yeah, this gets a little bit tricky because, in all honesty, this can cause some problems. So I have to state here that I am not an estate attorney. But if all of your accounts, your IRAs, your Roth IRAs and your traditional IRAs, 401ks, if your beneficiary is set up to be a trust of some sort, this could cause you some problems. So what I'm going to recommend here is that you reach out to your estate planning attorney, because from what it looks like, and with the current language many trusts are written with, you may be limited to only taking your RMD in the 10th year. Okay, so the way certain trusts are written these days, this may affect you where you might have to take all of the money out in the 10th year. Okay, so this could be a huge tax bomb waiting to happen. Okay, I have to again say the guidance is not fully clear yet, but again, my recommendation would be to set an appointment with your estate planning attorney to get ahead of this potential problem, so that you are aware of this in case a tragedy happened between now and when this is all cleared up. Okay. So I'm going to defer you to your estate planning attorney if you have a trust named as a beneficiary, but I'm warning you that potentially you could have to have all of the account be cleared out in 1 year, in the 10th year, if you do have it set up this way. So that's as far as I'm going to go on that particular subject. Okay. All right. So there are some questions that I've seen floating around that I think people probably need to get some clarity on. And one I heard was, what if I turn 70 and a half in December 2019? Is there any exception for me? Unfortunately, no. You're going to be beholden to these rules. So the RMD, you're going to follow the old RMD schedule if you turn 70 and a half in 2019. But if you're turning 70 and a half in 2020 and going forward, you can now delay until 72. So some of you are getting lucky and you get to put an extra 18 months on that, which if that's you, then again, you might really benefit from something like a partial Roth conversion that we could do for you to make sure you get as much money to that Roth account as you can, so that long term you're not paying a ton of tax when you're having to pull that money out down the road, or I should say your heirs, right? Because in general, when you pass, your children, or I should say your beneficiaries, are most likely going to be in their highest earning years. So if you leave everything in a traditional IRA, you're going to be paying, most likely some of the highest tax rates that they'll ever pay in their life. And, I don't think taxes are going to be going down from where they're currently at. If anything, they're going to go up. So it may be quite a bit higher than you expect. And I really don't want you to give away half of your wealth, okay? If that is you and you have most of your money in a traditional IRA and you most likely will have money left over, then definitely reach out. I would love to chat with you about some tax planning, because I think there's so much benefit there that we could do for you to get you set up for the future, okay? And then another thing that I've heard folks ask is, can I still make qualified charitable distributions, also known as QCDs, at 70 and a half? So the answer with that is yes. So that, for the charitably inclined, that did not change. So the good news is you can still make your charitable contributions and do your QCDs at 70 and a half. And that will be wonderful for those of you that are charitably inclined, okay? And the thing to add to that is, beginning in the year you turn 72, any amounts given to charity through a QCD will then either reduce or eliminate, depending on how much you give, your RMD requirement, okay? So that is going to be something that did basically stay the same, but it will count towards your RMD requirement once you turn 72, or I should say the year you turn 72 and beyond, all right? All right, so here's another nice benefit that I think is really wonderful, actually, because there's a lot of folks I speak to that basically retired, in kind of late 50s, early 60s, but now they're doing some part-time work just to keep themselves busy, or, in all honesty, to not draw as much from their retirement accounts and to make that money last longer. So one more nice benefit of the Secure Act is that it will be easier for long-term part-time employees to participate in 401ks at work. So if you work at least 500 hours in at least 3 consecutive years at a job, you will be eligible to participate in your employer's 401k plan. So prior, most employers would not allow you to participate in these plans if you were not a full-time employee. So there's also some other tax incentives for small businesses to set up more retirement plans. So that could be beneficial if you are a business owner to look into setting up a plan. There are tax credits, I believe, available for that. But for most folks here, you're going to be on the other side of that, where you might be working part-time. And if you have a 401k available to you, this may be a way to defer some of that income, if you like. And then also, some of you I know are just working for healthcare. That's literally the only reason you're working part-time, so that you can get healthcare and not have to pay for it out of your pocket. And maybe you don't even need the money. You just don't want to pay for healthcare necessarily because you want to qualify for a ACA subsidy. Well, then, hey, this would be a great way to get some more money tax deferred, so that when you actually do leave the workforce, you can then take that money out, hopefully when you have a lower tax rates because you're not working anymore, okay? And I actually think this actually will positively impact workers in the new gig economy, right? So, there's a lot of people now that are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs, and maybe they're doing freelancing here, and they're doing consulting in another area. But this will now impact them in a positive way, I think, that will allow them to contribute to retirement accounts without being limited by, let's say, only a IRA, right? So, in IRAs, you can really only put $6,000 or $7,000 if you're above 50. Whereas in 401ks, you could put $19,500 if you are below 50, and at 50 and above, you can add an additional $6,000 to that. So that'd be $25,500. So, you might be able to put your whole part-time salary inside of a 401k, not pay any tax, right? So I think this could be really cool. I think this could be a good benefit. So there's some positives and some negatives, right? In all honesty, it's not going to affect you per se for the most part, when it comes to these things, besides the RMD deferral. But it's really going to impact those who will be your beneficiaries and your heirs. So if you're looking to transfer wealth in the most efficient way, then there's going to be a lot of planning and a lot of things we really want to be doing starting as soon as possible, so that you're set up for this and making good decisions going into retirement. Okay, so Let's see. I think that's pretty much what I have for today. So I'm going to leave this up if you want to chat with me about this. And then I would be happy to do so with you. You can schedule an appointment with me at keepitsimplefinancial.com/talk, and we will do a complimentary retirement strategy call. So while I have this up, I'm going to check for questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments here. I will do my best to answer those. I'm going to pull them up right now. I only see one so far. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's a good one. Let's pull up Michelle's question, okay? So Michelle has a question here that says, my 14-year-old daughters are beneficiaries of an IRA upon my dad's death. If they inherit anything, would they have to take all distributions out within the 10 years of his death? So, I should say Alyssa, right? Michelle's your middle name. I apologize. So Alyssa, so if they inherit it while they're still below the age of majority, because in most states, the 14 years old is below the age of majority, they wouldn't have to take it out within 10 years, okay? But once they hit the age of majority, which in most places is 18 years old, then they're going to have that 10-year time frame to have to take that out, okay? So the benefit of this has really, of what you're talking about here, I have a feeling you probably work with somebody or maybe you've done some research on your own to create this strategy, because previously you could have done a stretch IRA. So now, since that benefit is really not as great, you may really want to revisit who's going to be inheriting this IRA, because if it all goes to the children, well, it's not going to have the same benefit, and maybe you want to have control of that, right? So that might be something to think about. Let's see here. Looking if there's any other questions, but I'm not seeing any currently. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap up for today, and we will call it another good training in the book. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully this was beneficial to you, and you found some value in what I share with you today. Again, if we try to do these for you every Sunday so that you can come in, you can learn, you can grow, you can get some more information. But the real reason I do this is so that you can make smart decisions and that you don't get caught off guard. I see so many people getting caught off guard, and it's just like, again, literally almost every day when I talk to somebody, even yesterday, it's like folks are making these little errors, right? It's just a lot of little errors when they're trying to put together their comprehensive retirement plan, because there really is a lot of little moving parts when it comes to getting a properly designed retirement plan, especially for looking at things like tax planning, retirement income planning, setting up your investment accounts, making sure your estate is properly optimized, and then making sure you're properly on track to retire with confidence, right? So I would love to help you out. If you have some questions, I'm here to serve. If you need anything from me, please schedule an appointment. Again, this is my website or my calendar page right here. I have appointments available. I think I'm probably out a week right now at this point, maybe a little longer. But I'd love to chat with you. The appointments are complimentary, no charge to you. And what we're going to do is spend about 45 minutes to an hour on what I call a retirement strategy call. Well, we'll be reviewing your overall retirement scenario. And then I will help you understand the main things you should be doing to make sure that you are properly set up for retirement, okay? And if those are things you want my help with, then we can talk about that. If you want to take them and try to do them on your own, then that's okay too. Then, that's totally fine. But again, no charge to this. And I just want to help as many people out as I can. And I actually like doing these, by the way. But I get a little bit busy, so my calendar can get stacked out a little bit. So if you need anything else from me, leave me a comment down below. I will do my best to come back in and answer the questions after, I come back and review. I will also put up this information on my blog. So if you go to keepitsimplefinancial.com, there's my blog there. I'm going to put up this information and some more written things beyond what I had in the slides, but it'll be very similar with more detail, including the notes that I shared with you that were not completely written out. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Other than that, I'm going to call it a day. You guys have a wonderful day. Let's make this a great start to our new year. If you're ready, let's make this the year you get your retirement plan in place. And if you want my help or our help, my team's help, I should say, I have another CFP on my team. We would love to help you out, all right? Have a great day, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye now.